Somebody was very mad at the keyboard.
I heard that. Did you hear about Jacinda Barrett? Is she the, she's the, oh,
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good evening. Thank you for joining us for the Talkback for a Little Girl. I'm Helen Arcantu. I'm the CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. YWCA of Northern New Jersey was so proud to sponsor this film tonight, along with Larry Bauer. It's always wonderful to partner with the Teaneck International Film Festival. Our mission at the YWCA is to empower women, eliminate racism, and create equal opportunity. And that couldn't be more aligned with the Teaneck International Film Festival, which is the film festival with a social conscience. With that, I know that we all just got to watch, maybe for the first time, maybe more than once, we got to see tonight, again, this wonderful film, Little Girl, that was full of themes like love and acceptance that were deeply intertwined with themes of fear and ignorance and outdated stereotypes. We know that children like Sasha and her family are still subjected to society's norms and pressures, even today. And films like Little Girl continue to help elevate these stories and help us build a bridge and for awareness and for tolerance. And so with that, I'd like to welcome our panelists who are joining me for this wonderful discussion now about the film. We have with us Molly Mitchell, who is the principal and founder of an innovative management consulting firm that pioneered a breakthrough approach to elevating human performance that catalyzes organizational cultures into environments where people have lived experience that they can contribute their whole selves, including one's sexual orientation and gender expression. Her firm's unique approach is designed for executives and teams who see the need for developing an alternative to hierarchical command and control cultures into organizations where everyone has the experience that they can make their full contribution and that it is valued and included. Her work is deeply informed by her own life as she grew up at the intersection of African American and white as a biracial, bisexual woman whose father was a leader in the civil rights movement and a mother and grandmother who were both active human rights advocates and allies. Molly has two children, her affirmed daughter, Chloe, who is 13 years old, and an 11-year-old cisgender son. She is raising them with her spouse and partner in the northeastern part of the United States, and her pronouns are she, they. Welcome, Molly. I also would like to welcome Tisha Leonardo-Santiago. She is a second-generation Latinx Hudson County native, recently promoted to the role of bilingual community relations specialist within the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights Community Relations Unit. In this role, she is responsible for program development and engaging with underrepresented communities. She is also the unit's lead on youth and higher education, prisons and police, Latinx, LGBTQI, Muslim, and immigrant matters. Tisha joined the Division on Criminal Rights, the Division on Civil Rights in 2017 as a bilingual investigator in the enforcement unit. Tisha was an integral bilingual subject matter expert for the New Jersey Bias Investigation Access System project that launched in November of 2020 and now serves as a community liaison for that platform. She proudly serves as an executive committee member of the employee resource group, the Alliance, DCR designated representative on the Human Relations Council, and member of the Law and Public Safety Diversity Council. She earned her undergraduate and graduate degrees in criminal justice from New Jersey City University. Welcome, Tisha. Thank you for joining us. So let's start with getting some reactions to the film. Molly, as the mother of a transgender child, what about the film did you find most inspiring? I heard you say that tonight was probably the third or fourth time that you'd gotten to watch it.
yeah, thanks, Helen. It's really great to be here with you and Tisha. It's really an honor and a privilege. I'm just thrilled. And so, yeah, what did I find most inspiring about this film? I would say to start, the whole thing. I am just so incredibly grateful to Sébastien Lifshitz, Sasha's family, and Sasha for their generosity and their loving awareness to have made this film. Anyone with any love that they're willing to give who sees this really clear story about the innate wisdom and awareness of Sasha and the deep compassion of her mother and her father and her brothers and sisters and her endocrinologist can't help but move from a position of judgment, fear, and criticism to opening to this new form of diversity and ethnicity that's emerged. And the conversation about gender until now has been so convoluted and oppressed in our society that there's really no one way to come at this topic. And Sébastien has done such a masterful job. The film just so incredibly beautifully illuminates how the world has changed and how it continues to change, and how much this emerging generation, being a mother myself and knowing other parents who have non-binary, gender expansive children, I've always been myself an outlier, on the extreme outer edge of society, being biracial, bisexual, with a Black father and a white mother, born 5 years after Loving versus Virginia Supreme Court case that, had resulted as a function of the Lovings being imprisoned for being in a committed interracial relationship, and growing up myself being called Oreo and zebra and mule. And today that would be so unthinkable in our politically correct society. And so in some ways, diversity has come full circle. And this film really is a huge step in normalizing trans non-binary experience in a very gentle, clear, and loving way. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that. Tisha, what struck you most about the film?
The whole film from beginning to end, speaking in the space of the I, seeing Sasha's vision, facial cues, and the way that she interacted with her mother in that space, I as a self found that very moving.
Yes, it was. I have to agree with both of you. The whole film is probably the answer I would give as well. So, now that we kind of started from that point, Molly, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about why do you think that gender nonconformity elicits teasing and fear?
Well, yeah, that's the question that's been kind of at the crux of my life as a parent. And, we're a society that is so infatuated with the new and youthful. And at the very same time, we are so terrified and rejecting of anything new. And the irony is that trans non-binary folks have been around for thousands of years, and they're just now emerging in Western culture as part of this newly globally connected society. So it's like the global village introducing the new global citizen. And it really asks of everyone, white, Black, brown, gay, lesbian, feminist, heterosexual, right-leaning, left-leaning, if they're really willing to examine their own biases and discriminatory, fearful attitudes and assumptions. And it really calls to question, am I willing to be truly inclusive? And, it's just like, looking at like time, just in the scope of like 300 years ago, cutting edge medicine instructed that if I were sick, I had humors, and the most sophisticated scientific procedure out there was to drill small holes in my head so the humors would be released. And then there was the discovery of microbes, and medicine was in a whole new world, yet the world hadn't changed at all. And we're in a new world. Trans non-binary people in the West is a new diversity that's emerged. And most people fear what's new and different. And it's very common, and it's a very ordinary automatic reaction. And when there's fear, what there is also usually there is aggression. And so it's very toxic. And this excessive negativity around newness has become so pervasive in our culture that trans non-binary people are often canceled and shunned for their diversity and their difference. That's definitely been our experience. It's actually why, I mean, I'm so grateful to you, Helen, and to Jeremy, and to the Trenton, I was going to say Trenton, the TNEC International Film Festival, for setting this up so close to the Transgender Day of Remembrance, because that day on the 20th is observed by trans and trans allies as a day of silence, to honor the shunned silence and microaggressions and the overt aggressions that trans and non-binary people are forced to live with every day. So this is just, you know, I just am so grateful for this, because it's, you know, it's not easy being an early adopter in this world. And that's what we are. We are the people who have really stood by and let our children evolve and become who they are, and cherish them for their uniqueness and their self-expression and self-awareness. And at the same time, we have to continually defend their very existence every day.
Yes, yes. And I think that was one of the most striking parts of the film, is watching, you know, Sasha's parents, and, you know, really seeing their role in all of this, and clearly a role that you've had to take as well, Molly. So we are so grateful that you're willing to share your experience. Tisha, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, Molly sharing, so much what comes to, you know, her child, her family, you know, as a result of this. I want to talk about what we have in place to protect children like Sasha, children like Molly's. But before we do that, I just want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the Division of Civil Rights and what you do, just to give it context, and as we jump into that other piece.
Perfect. And thank you, Helen, for that space. So the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights, we are a state agency that has been around since 1945. We enforce the law against discrimination in the areas of employment, places of public accommodation, housing, and business and credit transactions. So when we say the law against discrimination, what does that mean? And basically, the law protects all constituents in New Jersey, regardless of your immigration status. That is not something that we ever ask any individual that comes to our door seeking to have more information or file a complaint with us. In prohibiting discrimination or bias-based harassment against a protected class or a protected category. And that those protected categories are about 20 or more. And that includes age, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, race, religion, color, nationality, national origin, marital status, familial status, disability, breastfeeding, chest feeding, domestic partnership and civil union status is also still included in our protected classes, as well as liability for military service, disability, which I believe I already said, sex, pregnancy, the list goes on and on. We have one of the oldest statutes in the country and one of the broadest, and we continue to try to make sure that our law is inclusive. And with that being said, the division also enforces the New Jersey Family Leave Act, which promotes workplace equality for guaranteeing that you're able to take time to take care of a sick loved one or someone that's comparable to a family member. Due to the recent expansion of the law based on the COVID pandemic, as well as of January of 2022, we will be enforcing the Fair Chance in Housing Act. So we cover a lot of bases in New Jersey, and our mission is to eradicate discrimination from the state of New Jersey through education and enforcement and being proactive in educating everyone across the board on the resources available with Division on Civil Rights.
Well, we know that that's why it was important for you to be here today, because this is part, you know, of fulfilling that mission and that role. So, you know, talk to us. I know you'd mentioned proactively you have education and community outreach and relationship building, and reactively you investigate complaints. Can you speak to just, in case anyone watching, has experienced or has experienced any kind of bias, how do they get connected to your office to get support?
That is a great question. You are just full of great questions today. So there are various ways that you can contact Division on Civil Rights. You can visit our website, which is njcivilrights.gov. And on our website, there is a how to file a complaint, and it walks you through the process of what it looks like filing a complaint with our office. We accept our complaints electronically since November of 2020 through the New Jersey Bias Investigation Access System, which we refer to as NJ Bias. And it's in English and Spanish. We also have created handbooks for individuals that wish to file a complaint in the areas of employment, housing, place of public accommodations, the Family Leave Act, and as of January, the Fair Chance in Housing Act. And you just go on. You need an email address, and you just follow the prompt, fill out the information. If you have photos, if you have documentation you want to upload, you also have the ability to do that as well. At the very end of the intake form, you're able to schedule an appointment to speak to an intake investigator who will then ask you additional questions and then take it back internally to confirm whether or not we have jurisdiction to investigate, because unfortunately that doesn't fall within their jurisdiction. We have limitations, but then we're able to give you a referral list of other government agencies or resources that you may be able to connect with. And one of the things that I really do like about NJ Bias is that everything is on that portal. So as you're doing the investigation, if we accept the complaint, it's drafted, you receive it electronically, you sign it, and then the whole process is in that portal for you. So you don't have to worry about waiting for the mail, or what if you lose the email. Everything is right there in a convenient location. And you can also communicate with your investigator via the portal. So we really did try to make it as convenient and as advanced as possible to help ensure that constituents were able to easily access the system. Now, for individuals that may not have internet access or smartphone capabilities, or just be computer savvy, we also offer the ability to call our 1-833 DCR4U phone number, and then you get connected to one of our support staff who will then explain to you how to file, and if you're having issues, or if they are able to file on your behalf, they just serve as the vessel to put the information in the system for you. We also make accommodations for if there's a language barrier, or if there is a disability related accommodation being requested. All of those things we take into account and try to ensure to make it as convenient as possible for constituents to file. We also encourage people to follow us on social media, Facebook and Twitter at Civil Rights NJ, just to kind of stay informed as to what's going on with the division, our fact sheets, so on and so forth.
That's great. Thank you for all that information, and good that anyone watching has it and can also share it with anyone in their circles that might need it. I'm thinking about, I know we've got lots of folks and questions are coming in, which we'll get to in a moment. But before we jump to them, I, want to ask Molly, I'm thinking that folks who joined us tonight to watch, some of them, possibly joined because, like your family, they wanted to watch because it was a similar experience and felt, familiar to them. I'm also thinking that there's others, who are watching because this is new to them and they wanted to learn. So, what's something that you would like to leave folks with about this film, and something that you want them to really keep in mind?
Oh, thank you, Helen. That's a great question. Well, I mean, so many things come up. Well, for Sasha to come out as a girl socially, to transition socially, There's families like ours have very vast different experiences with gender, with how gender manifests in their children. And for Sasha to share, and her family to share their journey, her journey, so publicly and generously, offers us the teaching of radical empathy and inclusion. And I just really go back again and again to the young people today. They are focused on inclusion. They're not focused on labels. And that's one of the things, like my mother, who's one of Chloe's biggest advocates and allies, would say to me when I was, really, really, struggling, because 11 years ago, there was nothing. There was no resources anywhere. There was like 2. And, my mother would say to me, she would say, this isn't your childhood. This is not the world you grew up in. This is their world. This is Sasha's world that they're growing up in. They're having their own childhood. And the children of today, as Sasha's mother observes very astutely, they really get it, that a person is a person, full stop. There's a whole self, and that we honor the total dignity and validity in, of, as, and through differences. And I like to call that the wisdom of the millennial mindset. Because, Sasha's mother says it, children get it, that Sasha's a girl, unless the adults and the teachers whom the children take their lead from demonstrate otherwise. And, for myself, at the tiny age of 3.5, my child told me this in every manner of play, and in her most quietest, serious moments, that he was in fact she. And as scary as it was to hear at first, we really quickly came to see that this wasn't a whim or a phase or pretend play. That kind of assertion from people is laughable, because anybody who has a child knows that parents are watching their children and with such care and such scrutiny. I mean, really, to make sure that they're breathing. Just when you get a baby home from the hospital, it's like you spend the first month just going in to make sure they're breathing. So her play was indicative of something far more profound, which was her emerging authentic self and her identity that every person, every child develops to define their fundamental self-experience and self-expression through gender. And this developmental phenomenon, which is categorized in all sorts of psychological texts and so forth, actually is, scientifically diagnosed to occur between the age of 3 and 4. And it usually goes unquestioned, unnoticed, because more often than not, one's biological body agrees with this self-expression. So it's unthinkingly embraced and encouraged by parents. But when the assignment of gender at birth based on physical attributes is not agreed with, it calls to question the very foundation of gender norms, and sexuality for people. And for families like ours and like Sasha's, we are subject to scrutiny and suspicion. People are very suspicious. They watch me very closely, and I see how people are checking to see how my behaviors are, and we're avoided and we're shunned by people who called us our friends. We were ghosted, or as I like to say, they became permanently busy. So Sasha's family are truly pioneers, living through the scrutiny of an ignorance in society that's so pervasive. I liken it to Copernicus asserting that the earth rotated around the sun. And we all know what society did to him for that blasphemy. So this film is just a gift. It's a beautiful invitation for people to wake up and get on the right side of humanity, and to take a stand for the world working for everyone. And it's definitely not a simple thing, but it is a worthy endeavor for all of us now. So thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak so much.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful that you shared that, because it so beautifully reinforced what we saw in the film. Again, to hear it from another parent in, clearly, living in a different country, but yet, very, very similar. And, so important for those of those watching that maybe are hearing this for the first time to, to hear that and hear the, being in concert. And you actually touched on something that was one of the questions that came in, and maybe you can speak to it a little more. And if not, I can jump in too. But the question was, I guess when I introduced you talking about your son being cisgender, the question was, what does that mean?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. One of the things, I'm in a support group that I've been in for 10 years, and I really go now more to support families that are new to this journey, because the beginning of the journey when a child comes out is scary and so lonely. And it's so lonely. And there's new terms that are getting invented that are just, surprising and kind of exciting. And cisgender really just means that your gender that was assigned to you at birth matches your experience. So you're in full concert with your physical body. You're one of the, you have it easy in this life.
Yes. Thank you for broaching that. So another question that came in was, one of our viewers this evening said that their son and his French wife, who live with their two boys in France, how this viewer would love for their son to see the film, and is wondering how it's been distributed. And although I, can't say that I know all the details about that, I do know that you can access it not only through wonderful film festivals like TIFF, showcasing the film, but I do know that it's on other platforms. If you do some Googling, I know Netflix, I believe, has it, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to promote here, but in terms of others, because we're just all about TIFF TIFF all the time. But I do know that it, people can get access to it around the world, and we do hope that that is the case. So, one of the viewers is asking if, any of us, who watched it had a thought about the deal of the father's limited participation. Which does anyone have a thought on that?
No, yeah, my husband, just got Chloe full stop. And I think, especially in heteronormative relationships, which is, a cisgender woman and a cisgender man who come together and marry, it's kind of like I don't want to sound too extreme, but like the kind of the patriarchal kind of structure of society that we've all kind of the normative that we've lived with, that the mother's role is often one of taking the lead. That's why I think Sasha's mother had such an experience of self-blame initially, when she sits down with the physician in the beginning and she's saying, but, did I do this somehow? Did I make this happen to my child? And that, that down press on mothers to account for what's going on with the child is what's the case. It falls on the mother more often than not to take the lead for how is the child doing and how are they doing and what do they need. And then fathers, and this is generalizing obviously because it's a huge universe, but in a very, very general sense, that that fathers will kind of, my husband, I'm just speaking from my own experience, my husband wanted to support Chloe's success. And in doing that, he knew that the way to do that was to support me in what I could see was really wanted and needed. And heteronormative men, they are learning, I think, especially through the pandemic, but they're really learning what it is to nurture maternally, to be like really like giving their emotional well-being to their family and their children in a new way. Yeah. And I think, trans kids require that. But the fathers that I know who have stood up for their children, and some of them are here tonight watching, are some of the most incredible human beings I've ever met. And they are so grounded in their masculinity that they can absolutely be delighted by their children being non-binary or however they are, but just loving them for exactly who they are. Does that answer the question? I hope I did.
I think we're doing the best we can. We've gotta jump in terms of, our thoughts on this. And, another question is, someone was kind of wondering how so many raw and real moments were captured in this beautiful film. And, I think it truly was a work of art. I have to say it truly was a beautiful work of art. And, this viewer said the production was so authentic and poignant. And,
Yes.
obviously, it's really the generosity of Sasha's family for opening up their lives in this way and allowing the filmmaker to, give us all this glimpse of their life and, how their experience and how it unfolded, I think is how that happens. It's really generosity and really, them being very bold and, brave, very brave, very brave.
It really is. I mean, I think brave is really the word for it. I was not the only parent that was asked to be on this panel, and I spoke to a number of parents, a handful, and they said that the risk that they felt that they were taking in terms of stepping forward and stepping into the light and sharing about this, what it is like to be a parent of a trans non-binary child, was so risky to their child's well-being and to their own safety and well-being that they wouldn't do it. And, I'm using a pseudonym here tonight because, I mean, the scrutiny that I'm under is it's laughable. If it weren't so sad, it would be laughable because these, people who consider themselves to be, very liberal, left-leaning are more and starting to reveal themselves as being just that in name only. They don't actually walk the talk. They're like, oh, that's so great that you're so supportive of your child, and then we never hear from them again.
Well, again, brave for you to be here and appreciate. It's sad, of course, and we understand people's hesitancy to become a face for these conversations, but it's important to share that piece of this so that people understand, and also knowing that agencies like Tisha's exist for people to go to for support, and organizations like the YWCA of Northern New Jersey that has counseling services and 24-hour hotlines and abilities. And just for our viewers today that are with us for the Talkback to know, you'll be getting an e-blast tomorrow with lots of links and information that we've touched on today. You don't have to be fearful if you didn't get it all down. It's going to come right to you, right to your email, so you can save it and use it as needed. And I want to say we hope you never need to use it. But, we know that statistically, unfortunately, where we are as a society, the potential is very real. And so at least you'll know, where to access it from. So let me just get through. We just have a few more here. One of the questions too, which, I'm not sure if anyone else knows the answer. A couple questions about Sasha's family. How did they get involved with the film? If anyone knows the backstory around that, which, I actually did a little bit of reading a few articles, but I didn't actually see that piece anywhere. I don't know, Molly or Tisha, do you know?
No, I had done a little research too, and I couldn't find anything because that was a curiosity of mine. And just to touch back on some of the resources that DCR offers, we have fact sheets specific to LGBTQ in housing, employment, and places of accommodation. We also, besides that, as you know, we sat on the Transgender Equality Task Force back in 2019, which rolled out the LGBTQ Equality Directive for law enforcement and how to engage with transgender, non-binary, non-conforming individuals. So I encourage individuals, visit our website, look at our fact sheets, if there are other resources that we can provide please reach out to me. My contact information will be on the information you'll be circulating. And just to talk about some of the, for example, Sasha's experience in their school district, in her school district, and just thinking about what if Sasha was in New Jersey. As I was watching the movie and thinking of the law against discrimination and thinking of how the division could respond, and depending on the situation, depending on everything's on a case-by-case basis, but just thinking that being grateful of being able to be here tonight to share the information regarding New Jersey Division on Civil Rights and the law against discrimination, as well as all our fact sheets and resources. So parents, viewers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, coworkers can turn around during our return back to work life over the morning cup of coffee and say, hey, I have some information that may be valuable to you.
Yes, yes. And, Tisha, one of the questions that did come in was how many cases are you getting involving discrimination against trans kids or trans adults? Is that something you're seeing a lot of pop up here in New Jersey now?
That is a great question. I work in the community relations unit, so my job entails community engagement outreach. I am not privy to that type of information, but I do welcome people to email communityrelations@njcivilrights.gov to present whatever additional questions they may have. And the appropriate individual within the division would be able to give a formal response if applicable.
Yeah, and thank you. Thank you. And someone's asking if any of us have any sense of how old Sasha could be now.
Well, she was going into third grade. One of the things that I observed, I watched the movie 3 times, and that I think is quite likely is that she, her endocrinologist was counseling them at the end of 2nd grade, and that it was the summer. And I know a few families that take the summer when their child first comes out to withdraw from institutions like schools that can be quite critical and judgmental and harsh, and allow for the child to have some freedom to just be who they are. And then that informs, following their lead to really see how do they flourish, do they thrive when they are allowed to just be themselves and just be the gender that they say they are. And I think that's exactly what happened, is that she was allowed that summer with her mother and her family. And you saw that the other thing I wanted to note too was that they took a regional rail and a train to get into a hospital setting where there was a physician who was knowledgeable about trans non-binary experience. And I've been a mother doing this for 11 years, and I have sat in front of numerous doctors and psychiatrists who call themselves experts, and they know nothing. And so that was, that these are the subtleties that you don't see, but they had to travel probably for well over an hour for her to go see a physician who was compassionate and empathic and cognizant of the kinds of issues that, Tisha's well versed in. I mean, I was telling Tisha earlier how incredibly grateful I am for her, how families struggle. I mean, lesbian couples who have a transgender child, or gay couple that has a trans child. I mean, talking about scrutiny and microaggressions and isolation, it's absurd. These like loving families that are just doing the very best that they can, and they are shunned and ostracized every day. It's just astounding. So this movie is such a gift. And Sébastien shared, actually, I did listen to some of a podcast that he did, and he shared about how when he first arrived at the house to start filming, that he asked Sasha if he could go up into her room. And Sasha had never wasn't allowed, had not brought anybody up to her room because the way that she was presenting at school was as a boy. And so her room was a very, very sacred space for her. And so she was quite taken aback, but she did finally trust him and allow him fearfully to come up into her room and sit with her, and that she just sat on her bed while he sat there. And he said, well, can I film you playing with your toys? And she looked at him and she said, I'm not going to pretend that I'm playing for you.
Mm. Yeah. I think, that was really one of the striking things about thinking about Sasha's age, and yet the wisdom and the capacity. I have 8-year-old twins, and just the comparison, for me as a mother at that age and looking at Sasha at that same age, it really does show such a much more in tune sense to self that comes.
Yes, and the fear. I mean, the intense awareness that my daughter has, and I saw in Sasha, and those in, like, as Tisha was saying, those scenes where you capture these moments of Sasha's reaction and response to adults' questions of her. These children are so acutely aware of the binary, and how there's these just, like, to them, these just ridiculous and very terrifying rules about gender that they know that they're breaking. They know they're breaking, and the risk that they take to say, I'm a girl, especially, but not only, but especially for natal bodied boys who come out as trans female, is so revealing to me as a Gen X woman of the misogyny that is so pervasive in our culture, this hatred against the feminine, against women, that how dare you would want to be a woman.
Yes.
It's stunning. It's literally stunning. And then, and it's just, there's just so many ways you can come at gender, and it's just every which way can be so reactive for people. It's so reactivating. And that's why, for me, when I recognized that I really was going to be an advocate for my daughter and for all trans non-binary children, I was like, holy cow, I'm really taking on, like, the toughest conversation I could possibly imagine taking on in my life. And my mother said to me, she goes, well, honey, is there any better use of you really in this life?
Well, that seems to be a great place to wrap up right there. And mom knows best. It sounds like in that right there in that statement, for sure. I just wanted to share for our viewers, if you, in a moment, we're just going to put up on the screen here for you a contact sheet. In case any of you, for some reason, don't get the email tomorrow, we are putting up for you the contact sheet with some of the information that both, Tisha, has shared here for you. Please feel free to take a screenshot of it. Again, no, we will be sending an e-blast with this for you tomorrow. But this is an opportunity in case you want this information right away. Okay. And so with that, I really just would like to thank our guests tonight, Molly and Tisha, for making the time and, being with me in this space so that we can help, process this, amazing work of art that we saw, this journey, that the filmmaker took us on, and hopefully all, leaving this space and time together with just a better understanding of Sasha, her life experience, and even a deeper one, thanks to Molly sharing hers, and hopefully feeling some, hope for help and resources, thanks to what Tisha has shared with us. And of course, know that the YWC of Northern New Jersey is an organization that is here to be an ally and support, and you will receive our information as well. Again, we were very proud to sponsor this film, and I also want to make sure to thank Larry Bauer for doing the same. And we do encourage our viewers to think about, supporting the Teaneck International Film Festival way past, this important time of the festival now. There's events happening throughout the year, and the Teaneck International Film Festival is a nonprofit organization and is able to provide such, wonderful, thought-provoking and action-provoking, hopefully for all of us, from here, to be able to, learn that we can be an ally and an accomplice for our transgender community. And hopefully feel much more comfortable being in that space and standing with Molly and with Tisha and others to support, thanks to having organizations like TIFF. So please support them so we can continue to support our communities. And with that, I also want to make sure you mark your calendar. The Teaneck International Film Festival may be over for tonight, but it is not over. Tomorrow, we have the next film, which is 20 Pearls, which will be airing at 7:30 p.m. You can still get tickets for that if you don't have it yet, and you can do that by going to teaneckfilmfestival.org. So please visit the website, and it is the story of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, and definitely something that you want to see as well. Again, we'll have information for you so you can learn more about the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights, and also we'll send you an email in case you'd like to connect to Molly. Her mother has charged her, so she's here to support us on this journey. And so with that, I thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this conversation, with such gratitude to everyone who I can't see and those that I can, for joining us today. It is my great honor to have been able to be part of this. And thank you to Jeremy Lentz and to everyone behind the camera and behind the scenes that makes the Teaneck International Film Festival work. I'm hoping that you are all home, so I don't have to say safe home, but if you are still traveling there, safe home, good night, and we look forward to seeing you at the next TIFF event.